Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome back. We're going to be starting letter 1 in Jesus Christ, the Christ letters, the truth. And I'll just show that to you. And as we talked about earlier, we don't have an official author, just a recorder of these transmissions. So letter 1, as a reminder, if you didn't catch my first video, I broke down what each of the 9 letters, what we're going to talk about, what we're going to hear. So we're going to talk about why he's returning to dictate these letters, or his reasons for returning, talking about why we go through all of the trials and tribulations. Where do they come from? Do they come from God? Do they come from man? We're going to be talking about why his true mission on earth was not recorded properly, the misinterpretations from the disciples, not understanding what he was trying to convey, because they too, even though they were open to his message, they too were programmed to believe in a punishing God, in a God separate from their own selves. And we're going to talk about his 6 weeks in the desert and what really took place, and how this knowledge changed him from being a rabble rouser and a rebel to master and healer. So let's go ahead and get started. Letter 1. I, the Christ, take this opportunity to speak directly to you. I have come to rectify the misinterpretations placed on the teachings given when known as Jesus in Palestine 2,000 years ago. They are being put through one who, during the past 40 years, has been spiritually sensitive and dedicated enough to receive my words and act on them. These letters are truth. They transcend all religious doctrines in the world. These letters will liberate you. They are for all people who are searching for meaning to existence, purpose in their lives, strength to face the daily struggle to live and endure hardship, sickness, despair, and inspiration for those who aspire to greater spiritual awareness in their daily lives. You might say that these letters are a master's course for those who are ready to put foot to the path which I traveled when on earth in Palestine. You may doubt that the above words are true. As you read these pages and go into the facts I am giving you concerning existence and the origins of personality, you will realize that this truth could only have come from the highest source. Those who have difficulty in understanding the letters should read them a page at a time. Then put them aside and meditate. Gradually, the meaning will seep into your consciousness, for these pages are a link between your consciousness and my transcendent consciousness. Come to these letters with a mind as free of ideas and beliefs and prejudice as a very little child before it is indoctrinated with human belief. Bring me your uncluttered mind, a seeking mind, and I will fit it with true treasure, the treasure of highest knowledge, which, as you absorb it, will lighten your daily load and lead you into green pastures of brightest light, signifying abundance, joy, rapture, and fulfillment of every need. You will come to know how it feels to be abundantly blessed with all that exists beyond your present human comprehension. These letters are sent to all people throughout the world with my compassion and love. As you read them, you will feel the love and compassion and will come to realize that your daily struggles with existence were never intended for you. There is no need for you to experience pain and stress when you understand, absorb, and practice the truth of existence consistently. The purpose behind these letters. They are intended to bring enlightenment to the world generally, to enable humanity to construct a new consciousness during the next 2,000 years. These letters are the seeds of the future spiritual evolution of humankind. Note well, it is the spiritual evolution of the human consciousness that brings about the mental and physical evolution in your personal and global lives. and brings humanity into ever more harmonious states of well-being. If you find this hard to believe, reflect on the past 2,000 years and see what has been accomplished since I last spoke to people in person. There has been a gradual evolutionary trend towards the brotherly love I constantly preached to the Jews. When I walked the earth, there were no such humanitarian organizations as you have now. Ambition, greed, and self-gratification were regarded as normal behavior. There was little brotherly love even amongst the Jews, whose prophets for generations had exhorted them to love their neighbors as themselves. As humanity has developed its capacity for brotherly love, so has humanity made life more pleasant and comfortable for itself, in the form of mutual consideration, courtesy, kindness, and in the provision of hospitals, child welfare societies, care of the aged, human rights movements, and many other institutions devoted to the improvement of the human condition. All these have been born in the hearts and minds of those who sincerely heeded my original words, spoken in Palestine, urging people towards brotherly love and compassion for their fellow men. This form of spiritual caring and brotherly love gained tremendous impetus in the 19th century, when my words were preached with renewed sincerity and intensity from pulpits, and gladly received by earnest and sincere congregations. Preachers and congregations were by that time spread worldwide on every continent. The Sabbath was truly regarded as a day of rest, and the thoughts of the majority of Christian people were lifted to the contemplation of the power of God. Such a worldwide cessation from normal duties and occupations meant that a 24-hour-long elevation of conscious thought towards the divine creative power created a regular and powerful human/divine consciousness, underpinning and interthreading human lives. Human petition drew the power of the divine into the human consciousness and human experience, and led directly to growth and expansion in every facet of human life. However, people did not yet know how to mentally direct divine power into spiritual rather than ego channels of creativity. Consequently, the expansion of collective consciousness brought evil results, arising out of the ego power as well as the good results, produced by the spiritual consciousness of inspired and enlightened people. For this reason, I have come expressly to explain to you a vitally important fact of existence. Please read carefully. It is this: your personal consciousness is entirely responsible for whatever comes into your life and personal experience. It is your personal consciousness which brings you good or evil. In your subconscious, you bring through strongly imprinted but hidden recollections of past traumas and emotions of past life or lives, which can erupt and color your present consciousness. Your specific and impassioned prayer for alleviation of some kind may be answered, but it will avail you little in the long term if your mind and heart continually operate in contravention of the universal laws of love, and you live in a mindset of constant criticism. Universal laws of existence relate only to activities of consciousness and are exact and undeviating. They are not rewards or punishment from God. I repeat, are not punishment from God. They relate to the causative factor of the world as outer visible solid forms and experiences. Sometimes people make powerfully prayerful contact with the divine reality behind and within all creation. People make powerfully, I was going to read that twice. It responds, and its activity is shortly revealed as necessary improvements within the personal and national life. And people may exclaim, "This is a miracle." But in the long term, The state of the personal or national consciousness will again reassert itself in their experiences and will reproduce the same negative effects in health or affairs as they did previously. You cannot effect permanent changes in your lives unless you change your consciousness. Therefore, people must pray and strive at all times to achieve unconditional love. For in the 20th century, human mental abilities outstripped their spiritual development. Scientists thought they could explain away the origins of creation and ascribe them to accident. As a direct result, people ditched morality and began to give way utterly to self-will. They set in motion a new momentum of menace in the world, for they began to create a new form of world ego consciousness, directly in opposition to the nature of the divine, unconditional love. The human consciousness blocked the inflow of the divine. Note well, the ever-increasing lurid imaginings of a few people, which would have been contained locally a century ago, now became a contagious mental infection, glorified in literature, films, theater, spreading worldwide, creating a global human consciousness similar to their own, expressed as sexual excesses, violence, and perversions. This mental infection first manifests as egocentric modes of living and the creation of technical devices, which have created serious health disorders, climatical changes, crop failures, environment deterioration, extinction of living creatures, and wholesale slaughter of human beings. Mental infection manifests in the human personality as deranged and destructive behavior, drug taking, abominable cruelty and depravity, gangster operations, and sexual excesses. Thus has a vicious circle of malignancy and perversions of thought and activities been created by entertainment and media magnates. The purpose? To capture egocentric public vested interest. Your TV and cinema screen has become the new Bible of human behavior. Personal tragedies unknown to humankind a century ago have become rife, and people live in fear of walking the streets. Households are barricaded behind high walls. Family and social problems are taken into regular public debate, and so the saga of human misery is perpetuated. This is the beast stalking your lands and feeding a miasma of beastliness into innocent minds. It will be perpetuated until my Christ knowledge is acknowledged, accepted, and lived by the majority of people on earth. Because this knowledge will show you how to get back on the true path of life in order to start creating the kind of lives you truly desire. Because I am unconditional love, I am speaking the truth, which many spiritual minds suspect, but which is rejected by those who are spiritually blind at the moment. These words are not spoken to threaten or punish you, but to alert you to the source of all the unspeakable horrors which daily fill your newspapers and screens. It is only my love for all people that forces me to descend through the various levels of consciousness, to reach the dimension of human depravity, to warn you of its consequences in your present lives. Note well, important. You wonder from whence has come the HIV virus, which attacks man's precious self-defense system, the immune system, and also targets his abilities to procreate. This virus, if left to spread unchecked, not by drugs or medicine, by spiritual awareness, will wipe out the unwary. The enlightened will avoid these and other pitfalls of existence. Wake up, realize. Your own strong consciousness impulses are life impulses. They are highly creative electromagnetic impulses. When they are of a virulent, violent, aggressive, murderous nature, they emit electrical particles of virulent, violent, aggressive, murderous consciousness, which take form as virulent viruses in the air, spreading from one innocent person to another. What is born and nurtured in the diseased mind eventually takes on form in the physical world. This is not punishment from God, as the churches may teach you. It is a scientific fact of existence. Therefore, it is a matter of extreme urgency for all spiritually minded people to set aside infantile imaginings to perceive clearly the truth of creation and existence. My message to all churches. I, the Christ, have come expressly to tell you the truth about the origins of human personality. I will explain exactly why and how mankind has been given a natural inbuilt propensity for self-will and a controlling desire for self-gratification and self-defense. This is not sin, but part of the natural creative processes. There is no punishment from on high. Men, through the willful and harmful exercise of their ego power, draw to themselves their own punishment. Note well, for this reason, just as scientific school textbooks become redundant as the human mind discovers and absorbs more advanced scientific knowledge, so should the present form of Christianity, built upon spurious doctrines centered around my crucifixion, be allowed to die a natural death. Your present global crisis, introducing a new breakdown of international law and laying the foundation for future global terrorism, clearly indicates that no religion in the world possesses the requisite knowledge and effective leadership to initiate changes in human mental patterns, which will lead directly to peace and prosperity. The true spiritual leader will be able to show their congregations how and why modern mindsets have created the calamities and horrors which have been created in consciousness and are only just beginning to make themselves fully felt in your midst, as diverse forms of pestilence and earthquakes, floods, famines, wars, revolution, and other tragedies. Be assured, no evil which comes to your earth is a natural disaster. Everything inimical to your perfect welfare is bred first in your human consciousness, and then given form within your global experience. This is what I tried to tell the Jews when I walked the earth and wept, when they laughed and refused to believe it. They called me a madman. Let not the churches make the same mistake. Because the churches have been moribund, cemented into rituals and dogmas, their priests and pastors have been unable to meet the evolving spiritual needs of ardent seekers of truth. As a result, the churches are emptying. If they are to endure, the churches must put aside their differences and have the humility to accept that inspiration does not necessarily come to earth in ways acceptable to themselves. They must remember that I, the Christ, was not acceptable to the Jews. The churches must keep open minds and hearts to receive whatever they intuitively feel is a higher truth than that to which they presently cling, and to abandon the old beliefs which have permitted the beast to take control of human thought. Pray sincerely with all your souls, minds, hearts for true enlightenment, rather than a reiteration of old and false beliefs. Wake up and accept that these rituals and past beliefs have not fulfilled my words to mankind, when I promised that greater things than I did, you would do. Meanwhile, until true enlightenment comes to you after much meditation and prayer, teach, demonstrate, and live brotherly love with all the strength of soul, heart, and mind, minute by minute in your daily lives. Because to combat the global consciousness forces, humanity must make every effort to move on swiftly to the next stage of its development. Urgent need for a higher vision. It must be widely accepted there is a higher vision to strive to implement in your daily lives. It is only by reaching for a higher vision that the physical world will be rescued from wholesale annihilation. Without the vision either for the self or for the world, there can be no spiritual evolution or the achievement of those things greatly desired. At the present time, your perception of life is one of travail and deprivation. These beliefs are shockingly depicted and reinforced by your TV viewing. They later bring upon you the misery you hope will never happen to you. Therefore, to save you from your own folly expressed through the media and TV, the human consciousness must be speedily uplifted to see what I saw in the desert. The reality of love behind and within all existence. When this great truth is both perceived and warmly acknowledged, the reality of love will begin to manifest itself in multiple ways in every living thing and in the environment itself. The experience of abundance and joy will reinforce the consciousness of abundance and joy. And so a spiritual spiral of ever more exalted and wondrous living will be set in motion. When the true nature of being is fully understood, humanity will move on to the next rung of spiritual evolution and will put into motion a new and blessed form of human endeavor and personal experience. To achieve these goals, humanity must first gain insight into what and who you are. A new and important question is already coming into people's consciousness. Who are you, really, behind the facade you present to the world? What does it take to be real? It is this question of who you really are which is answered on every level of your being within these pages. And if you can accept as your own guidelines for daily living all that I understood during my 6-week desert experience, you too will eventually become whole and real, even as I became whole and real before I commenced my ministry of healing and teaching. Since there are few people in the world who would regard themselves as whole at this present time, you must surely recognize that there is the most urgent necessity for me to intrude into your minds, to lead you into a new way of thought and feeling. Such a change in consciousness will bring you into divine harmony with reality and better living conditions and security. To be able to do this work of reconstruction within your consciousness, I must first impress on your minds, and you must accept there was much that I taught in Palestine which men were not yet ready to receive. Significantly, it has never been publicly questioned why there is no record of my early life as a young man. What was the true reason for such an all-important omission? Equally significant, although I spent 6 weeks in the desert after my baptism and emerged from that experience as a teacher and healer, not one writer has even attempted to describe what actually took place during that time, other than that I was tempted of the devil and was with wild beasts, and the angels were with him. There is not the slightest hint as to what happened to me in the desert, which would enable me to come back to towns and villages proclaiming the kingdom of God is within, and to speak in the synagogues with such authority that the Jewish elders were astonished. The truth regarding my human state was, by common consent of my disciples, suppressed to give greater credence to my supposed divinity and ministry. According to the Gospels, it was said of me that I was the only Son of God. Why then did I frequently refer to myself as the Son of Man? I specifically made these statements to counteract the prevalent beliefs in my divinity, and to impress on people's minds that I was of the same physical origins as themselves. I intended them to understand that what I could do, they could also do if they only had my knowledge and followed my instructions for right thinking and right action. So many myths have arisen around my earthly person and my spiritual consciousness that it is time to be rid of them as completely as possible, since they are preventing people from evolving spiritually. You, who have been indoctrinated with religious teachings, must try to understand that when describing my life, my disciple gospelers related only what they personally remembered, which fully supported their account of my supernatural activities. They also included much that had been spoken of me by others during the 30-odd years following my death. After such a lapse of time and inevitable embroidery of truth, how could they possibly write an authoritative biography of me and of what really happened, or properly explain my true spiritual perceptions which gave birth to my words and miracles? Only one person can write from this standpoint, and that is myself. Therefore, these letters will bring you my truth in a way that no spectator could possibly tell it, no matter how well they thought they understood my thinking. For this reason, over 40 years, my recorder's mind has been systematically cleansed of all orthodox teaching, and the system of communication between us has been perfected. If my truth expressed in these letters differs from much written in your New Testament, is it to be wondered at or rejected for that reason? Therefore, I am descending in consciousness briefly, as near as necessary to your plane of consciousness to describe my life and teachings 2,000 years ago. I'm going to read a little bit more and then we're going to stop. My place in history. I must first point out that my life and person were briefly referred to in the history of the Jews, written by Josephus for the Roman governor and presented to the Roman emperor. Josephus briefly noted that Jesus, who attempted to overthrow law and order and the governance of the Romans, was punished and crucified. It has been argued that this was some other Jesus recorded by Josephus. But this is not so. I, who later became the Christ, who performed so-called miracles of healing and materialization, was the insurrectionist. But I was no rabble-rouser. I did not deliberately stir people up to defy the Romans and disrupt law and order. I was a rebel against existing Jewish traditions. And because, when I emerged from my 6-week sojourn in the desert, I saw a better way to think and live, and I tried to pass on my knowledge to my fellow Jews with little success. It is important you should understand that the pressure of public opinion weighed with my followers. Whilst they truly believed I had brought a soul-saving message to the Jews and was the Messiah, the Son of God, they were also of the world, trying to relate to the world as best they could. Therefore, although they knew my reactive feelings towards the Jewish beliefs, they were not happy to dispense with the Old Testament altogether, since it had supported and kept the Jews together throughout their history. In the interest of preserving what they thought to be valuable in the old dispensation, they suppressed any description of the person I was. My disciples and Paul built their own edifice of sacred beliefs on what they wanted to preserve from my life and teachings. They only taught and consolidated what they deemed to be valuable to people, Jews and Gentiles alike, at that time and in the future. Consequently, they distilled what they could use, and they let go most of what I termed the secrets of the kingdom of God, for they never understood them, nor found them desirable in the creation of a new perception of the divine, the Father. To preserve the Jewish belief in salvation from punishment for sins by means of sacrifices in the temple, the person of Jesus was adopted as the supreme sacrifice, who had paid for men's sins by my crucifixion. This belief served many purposes at that time. It gave my death on the cross a valid and heroic reason. It proved to the people that I was the Son of God, who had carried out a specific mission to the very end of my life. This belief also proved to be of great comfort to Jews when their temple was destroyed by the Romans, and led to many converts taking place. Many sects of Jews and Gentiles also did not believe in life after death. Consequently, it was greatly comforting to hear that Jesus Christ had overcome death and retained his body. To much human thought at that time, life was not possible without a body. Therefore, life after death could only mean the resurrection of the body. It also kept my name constantly alive in the minds of people. I was the historic figure who had valiantly died to ensure that men should be freed of all fear of hell and damnation. Providing they believed in me, they could walk as freed men. It is only because my name has been kept alive to this very day that I am now able to come to you and give you of the truth I so dearly wanted to share with people 2,000 years ago. Okay, we're going to stop there. And in the next video, we're going to talk about Jesus's early life and experiences in the desert, his baptism, what he felt in the desert. I'm just kind of looking through it for some other bullet points. Yeah, those seem to be the few main points of the next section of letter 1. Thank you all so very much for joining me. I love you all very much. I ask, if you can, that you take this in small doses and think on it, pray on it, meditate on it after every time you listen to one of these videos, one of these sections of the book, when you're following along with me, to gain the greatest benefit from it, thinking with an open mind and an open heart. So until I see you again, take care of yourselves, take care of those around you. I love you all very much, and I will see you again for the next few sections of the Christ letters. Take care. Bye-bye.